Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Cohen, several times in your testimony, you state the bad things that you did for Mr. Trump. And at some point, you apparently changed your course of action. There's a recurring refrain in your testimony that says, and yet I continued to work for him. But at some point you changed. What was the breaking point at which you decided to start telling the truth?
There are several factors. Helsinki, Charlottesville, watching the daily destruction of our civility to one another, putting up silly things like this.
Oh, that's silly.
Really unbecoming of Congress. It's that sort of behavior that I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for your silliness because I did the same thing that you're doing now for 10 years. I protected Mr. Trump for 10 years. And the fact that you pull up a news article that has no value to it, and you want to use that as the premise for discrediting me, that I'm not the person that people called at 3 o'clock in the morning, would make you inaccurate. In actuality, would make you a liar, which puts you into the same position that I am in. And I can only warn people, the more people that follow Mr. Trump, as I did blindly, are going to suffer the same consequences that I'm suffering.
I thought that was a powerful, powerful moment. There were many moments yesterday that were what the moments, okay? There was a lot of that going on because the amount of information, the name checking. I mean, he named everybody. He named Abby Lowell, Jay Sekulow as being lawyers who edited his testimony to Congress so that he would be lying to Congress, changing the dates of the Trump Moscow project to say it ended a lot earlier than it really did. So there was a lot of name checking. He name checked Weisselberg. He name checked Jr. He name checked Ivanka. He name checked this guy Matthew Calamari, who is now being researched like crazy by everybody. And it turns out Matthew Calamari is Luca Brasi. And what's crazy about that is that Stormy Daniels told a story about being confronted in a parking lot with her 2-year-old in the backseat of her car and being threatened by somebody from the Trump organization. And the exact words that mobster-like creature said to her in front of her 2-year-old daughter, who was in a car seat in the back, he said, you know, a beautiful baby, be too bad if something happened to her mother. And now we're finding out that Donald Trump really does employ thugs. He really does employ muscle. He really does employ guys like Luca Brasi, who goes, Michael Cohen said that. They said, well, how many people have you threatened? And you know, he said, she said 100. Jackie Spear asked him. She said, how many people have you threatened? 100 people? He says more. 200 people? He says more. Well, how many people? 500? He said, well, yeah, right in that area. And did Trump, you know, hire people to threaten people? I mean, how did it work? Oh, he doesn't need to hire anybody. They all work for him. They all work for him. They're already in the Trump organization. And then when he's talking to AOC and she's asking him, I mean, she was so sharp. She is so good for her constituents because she only wanted to know about fraud in New York City. Okay, insurance fraud that built, taxpayers out of money, fraud in misrepresenting what he was worth when it was time to be taxed on it, and inflating what he was worth when it was time to borrow against it. Right? She only wanted, and she was so, and he goes. She asked him, who else knows about this? Who else knows about it? And he started naming names, and he names one of these thugs. I mean, it was crazy.
To your knowledge, did the president ever provide inflated assets to an insurance company?
Yes.
Who else knows that the president did this?
Alan Weisselberg, Ron Lieberman, and Matthew Calamari.
And where would the committee find more information on this? Do you think we need to review his financial statements and his tax returns in order to compare them?
Yes, and you'd find it at the Trump org.
Thank you very much.
Simple, clean, right? So who are these people? Well, we know Weisselberg. Okay, I think it's the Daily Beast. Was that the article you gave me, Scotty? Daily Beast article? All right. I'm going to say Daily Beast. I don't know. Yes? Yeah, Daily Beast. They said that, there are now 5 committees that are going to be looking into Donald Trump's finances, okay? Because there was testimony given that Donald Trump is a tax cheat. Donald Trump was not under audit ever. And that the actual reason why Donald Trump had Michael Cohen say he was under audit is to avoid being audited. And he just didn't want to produce his tax returns. All right. So we have all this, and now we have name checks on everyone. We have name checks on Abby Lowell, who is a very powerful attorney. We have name checks on Rudy Giuliani yesterday. We had name checks on Jay Sekulow yesterday. We had name checks on Junior. Name checks on Ivanka. Name checks on people Alan Weisselberg, right? The CFO, who still is working for the Trump organization. Remember Weisselberg, who knows where all the money is. He knows every check that's ever been written. That's who Michael Cohen said he had to confer with in order to figure out a way that it wouldn't implicate Donald Trump in a payoff, an in-kind campaign contribution, or a payoff to cover up, his sexual escapades and lie to Melania on top of it, right? And Michael Cohen said he did that, and Weisselberg knows, and Junior's signature is on the check. So now all these 5 committees, Ways and Means, who wants his tax returns, obviously, and Ways and Means can do that. You got oversight yesterday. Now you got the Intel Committee. Cohen just finished his testimony before the Intel panel. And then you had the Senate Intel Committee the day before. And now every committee in Congress is going to call these people that were name-checked yesterday to come and testify. So Weisselberg's going to have to go. This Matthew Calamari guy's going to have to go. I don't know if you know who this guy is, but there's video of him from The Celebrity Apprentice, and there are stories about him in previous books that were written about Donald Trump. There's a biography about Donald Trump that was written in 1993. It's called Lost. This is from the Washington Post. They uncovered this, not me. This is brilliant. Okay, it's called Lost Tycoon: The Many Lives of Donald J. Trump. And in it, it says this, okay, in this book. Now, Matthew Calamari now is an executive vice president with the Trump Organization. And, of course, he's a security guy, okay? This is what his job was, all right? They wrote in this book, one summer night in the late 1980s, Donald Trump, then a New York real estate mogul, was enjoying a limousine tour through Manhattan with a friend when he suddenly had a question for his bodyguard and occasional chauffeur, Matthew Calamari. Quote, "You'd do anything for me, wouldn't you, Matty?" Trump asked from the back of the limo, according to Harry Hurt III's 1993 biography, Lost Tycoon: The Many Lives of Donald J. Trump. "Yes, sir, Mr. Trump," Calamari replied. Moments later, Trump upped the ante. "Would you kill for me, Matty?" Calamari's answer came quickly. "Yes, sir," he said. This is who Michael Cohen name-checked yesterday as being somebody who handles the insurance fraud stuff. And it turns out that he's a very real person. 40 years ago, Donald Trump saw him as he was a security guard at the U.S. Open, which happens in Flushing, Queens, okay, in Forest Hill. It's like right on the border, those two towns, right? And it was the match between Chris Everett and Martina Navratilova. And it was the semifinal, and the audience was, getting very, very emotional, and a guy started heckling and blah, blah, blah. And this guy, Calamari, was a security guard for the U.S. Tennis tournament. And he saw this guy in the audience, and as the security guard, he took the guy down. Literally tackled him. And he told Bloomberg News about it. He said, I took one guy immediately right down. When another person started to act up, I ran right at him. I picked him up. I slammed him to the ground. I carried him down. Well, according to the story, Trump saw that. And he was impressed with the violence. He was really, really impressed. He never had met this guy before. This is 40 years ago. Never met this guy before, and he hires him. So in the 90s, he becomes the security director for Trump Tower, New York. And in another book, in 2004, Trump How to Get Rich, he explains why he likes this guy so much. He said, after getting to know Matthew, I realized he had a lot more to offer than his job title warranted, and he proven me right. Calamari was in charge of building operations and ran the company's entire security organization. He's a dedicated and trustworthy worker. Any CEO in his right mind would want to have him around. Here he is, this vice president at the Trump organization. Vice president.
Another man who's done a great job for me is Matthew Calamari, my chief operating officer. Matthew?
How are you, Reed? Donald, you know I don't care for Jen very much. Got to be honest with you. Because, well, I'm not doing too good, have we?
Why are you looking at me?
I don't know. Reason.
You're doing great, Matt. Who do you like? Who do you like of the two?
Who do you like of the two, Matt? Which one?
I like Kelly. I think that, wow, okay.
Donald, what he's trying to say is he likes Kelly.
Hey, Regis, people think this stuff is easy, right, Regis? It's not so easy.
A reality TV star is the president of the United States who actually employs Luca Brasi. And I hope your first child is a masculine child. Don Corleone, thank you for inviting me here on the daughter's day of her wedding. And I hope the first child is a masculine child. Thank you, Luca. Can you believe this? Now, remember, Stormy Daniels said some guy, and there's a drawing of him. Now, the guy that was in the drawing looked exactly like John Bon Jovi. I'll never forget it. Looked just like John Bon Jovi. So I'm wondering if it was somebody that, well, I'll just tell you, Matthew Calamari's son also works at the Trump Organization now in security. I wonder what Trump Organization security allows. This guy is the muscle. Why does a businessman, a legitimate one, need muscle? What is that? You see what I mean? This is just, and I just wonder, how long is he going to remain president of these United States? Go to RandiRhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.